Welcome to another episode of Focus On, where we cover various topics surrounding effective end of life planning. We know that planning equals peace. It is our objective to provide you with sound information that allows you to create the legacy you desire. With that said, let's present our host for Focus On.
Hello, and thanks for joining us today for today's discussion on Focus on Planned Giving. Now, before we get to the main course, Planned Giving, I'd like to start with a bit of an appetizer and bring to you Ms. Brandy Alexander, who is the National Director of Community Engagement for Compassion and Choices. Brandy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ricardo, for the warm welcome.
Now, Brandy, tell us about the mission of Compassion and Choices and the role of community engagement and how what we're doing today fits into that.
Absolutely. So Compassion and Choices is the largest and oldest nonprofit focused on expanding choices and improving care at the end of life. And we do that through advocacy and education. And we envision a society that accepts the inevitability of death, but then also embraces the inevitability of death, but also embraces expanded options for compassionate dying and empowers everyone to choose the end of life care that reflects their values, priorities, and belief. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we represent over 450,000 supporters in all of the states, including DC, Guam, and even Puerto Rico. And so we work across the nation in communities, state legislatures, Congress, courts, and the medical system to educate, empower, advocate, and defend all issues surrounding end-of-life care. And so we really started to work on this Focus On series as an enhancement to our community engagement efforts, so that we're really meeting people where they are in terms of planning and having informed discussions about end-of-life care. And so, Ricardo, as you know, this is a very tough topic, but it's so necessary because we know end of life is something that we all have to face. So having those tools can only help us really approach such a difficult situation. And that's why we lead our efforts with what Sam said, which is planning equals peace. And we joined with the development team because, as you say, Ricardo, a lack of planning is hazardous to your health and your wealth. So we really wanted to tie these issues together around your end-of-life healthcare planning, specifically around plan giving this time, because that's a very important aspect of complete end-of-life planning. So as Sam said in the beginning, this is the best way to ensure the legacy that you want to have. And making these plans is really the most loving thing you can do for your loved ones. So we want more communities empowered with that information, which is why this collaboration is so important and valuable. And so I'm excited to continue this series as we really deep dive into these critical aspects so that our advocates are fully empowered, not only for themselves, but for their loved ones as well. So I know that was a long intro, but really I'm excited for this conversation and really to hear how you and Sam can really help our advocates be more prepared.
Well, thank you, Brandy, for that information. And that gives us a good foundation. And thank you for being a part of today's episode.
Thank you. Good luck.
I know we'll talk again soon. So now it's time for the main course. Next up, we have Mr. Sam Young, who is the Senior Director of Legacy and Planned Giving for Compassion and Choices. Sam, welcome to the show. We are glad to have you here today.
Thank you, Ricardo.
So in doing my research here, I got ready for you, Sam. I'm all excited about our discussion today. First, tell me a little bit about how long have you been with Compassion and Choices?
I've been with Compassion Choices for 5 years, and I focus on planned giving. I have over 20 years of nonprofit experience in senior leadership roles, and I also practiced law for about 10 years, and I'm licensed in 4 states.
Gotcha. So again, building on that little nugget there of being an attorney, my research also showed that in addition to you being an attorney, you are also a licensed social worker. So what motivated you to combine those two skill sets?
Well, Ricardo, plan giving is relational and transactional. As an attorney, I can offer my expertise and be a collaborative partner with you and even your financial advisors, like yourself, by having a perspective of the tax law and benefits. As a licensed social worker, I can help you decide what you want to accomplish for your family or chosen family, what is the right time, and understand all your feelings about end of life. At Compassion and Choices, while I focus on plan giving, my diverse skills allow me to be a resource for your overall end of life planning across the board. I can be the connector to our end of life consultation line and other tools and information that assist your journey. My first question is not about death and technical strategies, but what do you want your legacy to be? We can then explore the win-win tax-wise strategies with no obligation or expectation. The questions will lead us to answers.
Gotcha. Sounds like to me you have a lot of work to do there. So we're certainly glad to have you as a part of today's show. So let's dive deep into it here now. So what is plan giving? Oftentimes we hear that term bandied about and so forth. And just as you mentioned about creating a legacy, which is so important. So for our audience, can you define for us what is planned giving?
Sure, and thank you for that question. Plan giving is merely a present intention to create a future gift commitment, and your financial and estate plan is integral to your end of life planning. Plan giving allows you to support the causes that were important to you during your lifetime, to communicate your wishes to your heirs so they can ensure that your legacy is carried out. It also provides significant tax benefits and can even provide guaranteed life income. It can maximize your generational wealth transfer plan as well. One size does not fit all, and our goal is determine is what is right for you. Ricardo, I call it the win-win situation. But I'd like to do something else here, Ricardo, if you'll bear with me. Flipping the script, how do
Mhm.
you see financial estate planning play out with your work with individual clients?
Well, I guess we've reversed roles here a second, Sam. So putting on
Yes.
my financial planner hat, you're absolutely right when you mentioned that uh, plan giving is an essential part of your financial and estate plans. And so when I'm sitting down with clients, one of the first things we do is to ask their intentions, much like what you said earlier when folks are coming to you in an interest to do plan giving, of course, incorporating compassion and choices with that. My process starts very much the same way in identifying or helping them to define what things or what legacy they would like to continue after their death. You know, certainly it's easier for us to make sure things are executed the way we want while we're still breathing, and we can make sure it's done. But oftentimes, for those causes that we support and we're committed to, we want to make sure there's a continuation plan. And that's where the plan giving comes in. And as you mentioned about income sources and other things like that, this is where we'll sit down and look at, for instance, some clients who are now in retirement, depending on their age, especially if they're past age 70, they may be required to do minimum distributions. And fortunately, in some cases, those individuals may not need some or all of that income. So as a result of that, they are able to make contributions to those causes in which they support. So that is one mechanism or one tool or vehicle that they can utilize to create the necessary funds to support their causes. Of course, there's a myriad of different types of trust, charitable remainder trust, charitable income trust, and so forth. But it really requires sitting down with their team of professionals, whether it be their financial planner or their estate planning attorney, to determine what are the best options for them. Number one, based on what their goals and objectives are. Number two, based upon what resources they have available. Number three, once they've identified those causes they would like to continue supporting after death. And last but not least, what are the tax incentives that are available to them, not only after death, as it relates to the overall estate and potential estate taxes, but also during life, because there are tax benefits to planned giving, and setting up certain types of vehicles, can be tax advantageous to them. So it's a lot of things. Certainly, it's a lot more than to go over during this session here. But what we want to do is really just try to provoke some thought and create insight as it relates to the possibilities and the options that are available with effective plan giving strategies. And so certainly working with an expert like yourself is certainly one of the options that's available to them in plan giving, and being able to support great organizations like Compassion and Choices.
Ricardo, I just have one follow-up question, if you don't mind, building on the wonderful work that you and Brandy do with our councils. Could you just briefly explain what happens if you don't have a will and it goes to probate, and why it's so important to plan now?
Sam, I'm so glad you asked that question, because you're right. When we're doing our outreach work with the various councils and meeting with various groups, one of the things we try to make sure to emphasize is the consequences of what happens when you don't plan, when you don't put it in writing. And you would be amazed at the different answers we get from folks when we pose that question, because sometimes they say, oh, well, I just have one child, so my son or my daughter knows what to do with it, or I told my sister what to do, and so forth. And they have nothing in writing. There's nothing legally set in place. And then when we start to go through the process of what happens when you die without a will, which is called intestate, then we explain that the courts come in and decide who gets what, and what percentage and so forth. And it may not be according to your wishes, or unfortunately in some cases it may end up going to folks that you don't want to get anything. And certainly from the standpoint of the causes that you support, they end up not getting anything at all. So essentially, it is absolutely critical to put it in writing, to make sure you're following the applicable laws of the state in which you reside, and make sure those things are documented and filed in the court. Because that's the other thing we find oftentimes. Folks may have a will, but upon your death, if no one can find it, where those documents can't be found, what do you do? So it's important to follow all the proper steps to make sure things are in place, that it's in court, and also recognizing that a lot of the challenges that we see many families face can be avoided, or certainly minimized, through proper planning, which really starts with having that will. I like to call it sometimes being able to still have control while in the ground. It really allows you to do that, by proper planning.
Thank you. I'd like to just share one thought with you, Ricardo, and then turn it back for the last words. And that's really helpful for people to understand the process as well as what plan giving is. What I just want to say is that from what you said, time is of the essence. The opportunity is not always there. And I just urge everyone, with you or me or whomever, to explore their options and create the legacy for them and their loved ones now. And as important as your advance directive and other documents, your will is part of that process where you and I can be helpful to it. So with that, I want to thank you and Brandy for being my partners with this, and I turn it back to you. Thank you, Ricardo.
Well, thank you, Sam, for that. Obviously, we have a lot more work to do, and we're looking forward to working with you in the future. All righty. And for those who are inclined to find out about ways to support CNC, we have on the screen information where you can reach out to Sam Young with Compassion and Choices. Additionally, on the website, the Compassion and Choices website, we have many resources available as it relates to end-of-life care planning. There's a section on financial planning and other ways to give. We welcome you to visit the site at www.compassionandchoices.org. Also, we do have it available in Spanish as well to support those individuals and families who speak Spanish as their primary language. Also, if you would like to call in for information, that number to call is 1-800-247-7421. With that, I would like to thank our guests, Mr. Sam Young and Ms. Brandy Alexander of Compassion and Choices. Remember, if you didn't catch us live, you can visit the Compassion and Choices YouTube channel for this and other great information. We thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. Just to give you a little tidbit of information, look forward to our special episode for Black History Month, followed up with another special episode for Women's History Month. So again, we thank you for joining us today for our program, and looking forward to having you join us in the future, because as we always say, planning equals peace. Thank you.